Hello and welcome to the Grow Up Podcast. My name is Kennedy Garfield, and I am a 20-year-old dreamer who is obsessed with leveling up their life. If you are looking to build your confidence, navigate career moves, or find balance in your relationships, then you have come to the right place. My goal in this podcast is to allow inspiration and knowledge to easily seep into that beautiful brain of yours. Think of this podcast as your weekly dose of growing a little stronger. Leave it to me to provide relatable advice, share personal stories, and interview badass women who are killing it in their own unique way. I know you're about to have such a great time with me, so thank you for pushing play today, and now let's grow up together. I am super stoked for this podcast episode. I interviewed Natalie Lofthouse. I met Natalie about a year ago, and ever since I met her, I immediately became attracted to her energy and everything that she stood for in her life. She is an amazing mom. I love the way that she raises her kids and runs all of her businesses. You are going to hear her stance and her viewpoint when it comes to her life, and she is amazing in all the words of wisdom that she shared with us in this podcast. So, please tune into this episode. I would also like to note, please give us some grace as this was filmed at 6 a.m. in the morning, along with us both being sick. So you're going to hear some sniffles. You're going to hear some cracked voices due to the early morning. But please stick with us. This is an amazing, impactful podcast for those that are moms wanting to be moms and for those that are looking for authenticity in their life. So tune into this podcast episode. Thank you so much, guys. Let's get started. Thank you so much, Nat. I appreciate you wanting to answer all these questions. So I'm excited to hear from you. Again, there is no right or wrong answer. So say whatever you feel. And I'm just excited to hear what you have to say. Sound good?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, awesome. Let's just get right into it. First question, what is your definition of self-love and how do you give that to yourself?
Oh, self-love is kind of a tricky one for me, I'll be honest. I know it's a very normal thing that people are always talking about. They're always saying, things like you've got to give yourself love, or you're not going to have room or space to help others and do what it is that you need to do. And I do believe that. I also think that along with that, I feel like there's a balance, a fine balance with that, that a lot of people can kind of not abuse, but almost use as an excuse, right? To do whatever and everything that they need to do to self-fulfill themselves. And I think that's where it can be a little bit tricky. For me personally, I feel like self-love for me is having my boundaries with others, and I'm trying to do better at having boundaries also with myself, right? When it comes to work, being a wife, being a mother, I really am trying hard to make it a point that when my workday needs to end, my workday needs to end. My workday needs to end. I need to be present. I need to be home. I need to be with my kids. I need to, do the things that I need to do on my end. And when I'm serving others in any way, whether that's being a mom, whether that's cooking a good meal, whether that's, reading a book with the kids or something, that to me, for me personally, that's self love because I'm making sure that I'm opening up space in my life to intentionally be with those around me and just kind of be more present. For sure, I love to go get my nails done. That's one thing. That's I guess one of those things that I would be oh, that's my one. I do it constantly. It's a once a month thing for me for a couple hours. And I think that's important too because you want to feel good. So yeah, that's that for self-love.
I love that. And I like the way you brought up a healthy balance because I think that's with everything is finding balance of the fine line of okay, not using this as super an excuse within my life, but something that's beneficial that will move me forward. So I think that's crucial. I'm glad that you brought that up 100%. Next question, how do you show up as your authentic self?
This one, is, I don't know. I think it's an interesting question. It's not funny, but it's like, it's sad to know that we live in a world where people struggle with authenticity, right? And you hear like it's such a hot topic, but people are always like, be authentically you, like be your true self. And I'm like, what else is there? Like, really, what else is there? And it's really sad. And I think this gets really like, it gets like misconstrued through social media. You really see like, you can like tangibly feel and see it when people are not themselves. And I just, I don't know. It's something that for me, it's just like, I try and articulate my thoughts. I try and um, say the things that come to me as they flow through my mind. And like, whatever that may be, that's what I try and do. Um, and I also have like a very clear understanding that like who I am, what I believe, what I say, what I share doesn't fit for everybody, right? Like, is not something that resonates with everybody. And I'm okay with that. Um, I think the struggle with authenticity is people want to cater to everybody and they lose themselves in the process of of that. Like they lose themselves in the process of trying to be for everyone. And then you're not authentic, right? Then you struggle and then you have your own self-doubt and you come off as like someone that just is disingenuine in the things that they're sharing and expressing. And so I just think that there's no other way to be than just yourself. That is not to say, though, um, that you can just say and do whatever, because there is such an important balance between being who you are, sharing the things that you believe, and being confident within that space. And then there's that, and then there's being disrespectful and like, chauvinistic and like, this is me. You have like, there's a balance with that, right? Like, you do have to also know that there's like a good space to reside within so that you can also respectfully um, be who you are for yourself and for others, right? So just be who you are, I guess. Like, don't try and be something that you're not.
Exactly. That was gold. Like, I love how you said, like, what is the other option? Because there's not. Like,
Yeah. It's
there
like,
really is
what?
not. And some people, like, and I'm guilty of this too. I mean, that's why I asked it of like how to authentically me. Like, I'm very much a masker. Sometimes it's like hard to show up as like, oh, this is who I am today because that changes, like, the
Oh,
way.
for sure.
Um, I'm glad that you say that because it's like there truly, if you want like happiness, like there is no other option because your other option just leads to like losing yourself and being for everyone when if you're for everyone, you're for really no one. Um,
Right.
and like we've heard that phrase with Kevin and stuff like that. So I mean, that's like with business, but I feel like that's kind of also personally as well. Like, I don't know. It's cool. I love that.
Well, and I think too, like with that, you're like we are human beings. We are transforming all the time. We are always learning and growing and like changing with the things that we learn. And I think it's okay to be one way and then as you learn improved ways, move and shift into those improved ways because that's good. That's like self growth, that's personal development, that's doing the things that's like being a good life student, right? Like being a life student is amazing. Like that is something I consider myself to be because it's like I'm always learning. I'm always open to new change and growth that is good and positive. And if it's going to be something that helps me better serve others by moving into a space that is improved, you know, why not? That's okay. But I don't think that really takes from being your true self. I think that just adds to what's already there and good. So,
I 100% agree. That was cool. That was good. I like that one now.
love you so much.
You're like the best. Okay. Um, Third question, how are you raising your girls to be strong women or just women in general? Or what is your take on raising girls and children? Just pretty much any of your kids.
Yeah, I think this really does apply to all my children. But with girls, I think there is a little bit of a difference, right? Like, and that's just child to child. Like, there's no one of my children that I can parent the same way as the other. They're all a little bit different. They're all, their own DNA. Like, they are very specifically them. And I guess I really want my kids to know that their life and their existence truly is a gift to the world. Um, I really want them to be able to grow up and be kind to others, like live in a space of humility and know that they can always grow, can always learn, can always improve, and just to be grateful for their life and for what it is that they have to offer the world with their own talents and their own skills. Um, I also think it's really important that they understand to accept weakness and to grow from their challenges because there's so much pressure on our sweet kids in the world today. So much pressure. This is like a very very scary world. And it is so easy to listen to all the noise and to get lost within that. And so I think a huge thing that's really important to me is to raise them to be confident and raise them to be kind. Kindness really does go so far with others. Like people, you go to the grocery store, you see that mom struggling to get all her kids in the car and load groceries. I give this example all the time, right? Because it's so true. It's such a small act of service that anybody can do for anybody, but we don't do it. And if you take that, extra 1 minute and you walk over and say, "Hey, I'll grab your cart and put it back for you in the cart return," like you have no idea the impact that leaves on people. Like little things go so far with the whole world. And so take the extra minute. I want my kids to know like it doesn't affect you in any way that's bad to take the extra 30 to 60 seconds and perform an act of kindness for somebody. It goes so far. And you see it all the time. You see people go to the drive through and they pay for the car behind them and it becomes this repetitive cycle of love and service to others and it's good. It changes people. Like kindness really changes people. So I want them to know that that's important. Um, Something I'm trying to work on better. My husband is so good at this. I don't know if it's like a Colombian thing where I'm just like proud or what, but I hate how I'm not constantly apologizing for my faults to my children. I do it, but I don't do it enough. And I think it's really important to apologize when you're wrong and just have enough self awareness to recognize when you've hurt somebody in some way. Children, of course. People say all the time, kids are so resilient. Kids are so resilient. They bounce back from anything. And I'm like, no, kids are not resilient. Children are not made to take your crap. Children are not made to be resilient. Children are made to love and to nurture and to help grow as they develop, right? Like I I I had lived through a lot of abuse as a child and sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, really bad situations at times. And so many people go through that. So many people. And I was not resilient. Children are not resilient, they are resourceful. Children learn, I don't want to get emotional, but children learn to cope with their environments. They learn to just, wow, and my voice sucks because it's early. Um, Children learn to cope with their environments and to be resourceful emotionally, physically, mentally. And I don't want my kids to ever feel like they have to be resourceful and live in a reserve of um, preservation. Like, I don't want them to feel like they just have to like exist and just like strategize on how to get through the next day. So that's super important. I want my kids to know that I am always here, even in the worst situations. I want to have a relationship with them where, heaven forbid, I have a teen mom come out of my kids, right? Or a teen dad, heaven forbid. But if it were to happen, I want my kids to come home and have that conversation very first with my husband and I, and know they can approach us and know that we're going to support them and help them through those things. Um, and then I think, last but not least, I just want them to know that there is a lot of importance in personal awareness, self awareness, right? And it's okay to have um, faults and things that you're working through, but to make sure that they're constantly implementing the change and expansion that they need to grow and develop more in their life.
Yeah. Wow. That was powerful, Nat. That was good. That was so good. I
You
love
ask me anything about my babies, and it's like, okay.
no, like I loved all of that because it's so true. Like I loved how you brought up like about the weakness, learn from your weaknesses. I feel like I mean, it's hard with children. It's like something hard to teach as well. And I feel like I never had that perspective. Um, like you said, like it was always like, I don't know, positive, 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 like be kind. Like I love that too. But it's like, hey, like your weaknesses are not bad. Like it's okay, we can learn, we can learn. And just like learning that way instead. Like I love that you brought that up. I've never heard that before. And the little acts of kindness go a long way. It's so true. Like it's something that won't impact you as much, but it like goes such a long way for the person on the other end. So
It
I love
totally
that.
does.
I've tried to do that as well within my life. Like I've bought so many gift cards and like given them away. Like it's
You're
just
so awesome.
thing to do, and it's just but it like has turned my like life around as well, like just like little things. And like honestly, something that I've also learned is like with that is like never I was told never to really compliment on appearance or anything like that, but to compliment more on stuff that was like more out of their control. So like this guy
Totally
southern I was in the Chick-fil-A line, and this guy, he had a southern accent, and he just was the sweetest kid
cute.
I've ever met in my life. And he was like saying, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Hope you have a great day, ma'am." And it just was so amazing. And I just stopped and I was like, "Hey, I want you to know you have the best energy ever. Like I can just feel it just coming off of you while I'm sitting here in my car." And it just like lit him up so cool. So like it's like little things. And that
It
didn't even
is.
like take me. That was like 30 seconds, and it like hopefully made his day, but it's just like the
Oh,
sweetest.
it for sure made his day. It's
Yeah.
like, it throws people off, which is
Yeah.
so sad. But when you
It
pay
is.
someone a compliment that's genuine and heartfelt, or when you do any tiny act of kindness, like I've had people, I do the cart return thing pretty often.
I love
It's
that.
just a really easy thing. It's something that I constantly remember when I was juggling, three babies under 15 months. Like, I remember like the twin car seats and then the other car seat. So I literally had three car seats in two carts. And then I had like the cart with the one baby I would pull behind me, and that's where I put the groceries. And then the cart with the two babies, that was just what it is. I'd throw a basket underneath that one so I could like get more groceries in. And it was so freaking overwhelming going through the grocery
Yeah.
market, because it was like all three of them had their bottles, all three of them had their binkies. And it was like the constant like shift to like look at my grocery list, make sure I was getting everything, make sure the babies were okay, get to the parking lot, bag like try and load stuff. And I'm like, okay, I don't care if a mom has one child and she's putting that one child in her car seat. If you can just run over and beat her to the task,
Yeah.
grab it makes their day. It makes their day. One thing too, I forgot to say, is so important with your kids is to strategize with them. We do this in business, right? Like we have strategy sessions, we look and we like are constantly like, figuring out ways to um, implement better processes and better systems and things that are going to have, better output, better outcomes. And it's totally okay to do that with your kids. Kids actually really love that because they get your undivided attention. they relish in that. Like when my kids get their one-on-ones with me, it is gold. Like when I go, when we were doing milking in the mornings, I would take one of my kids with me. We'd go milk Molly. We'd go to Crumb Brothers. We'd grab breakfast, and they get dropped off at school right after the bell rings. It's so important. You don't even have to do that. You can take your kid and just go for a walk, but it is so important to have the one-on-ones. And just remember that always, as you're raising children, that we are just raising adults, right? These are just tiny adults in the making. And so when you speak with your children, like they're an adult to some degree, right? Um, when you carry your tone like you're having a conversation with another adult, um, they really listen to that, right? They don't want to sit there and be like babied and coddled. They want to be treated like they also can have some sense of like responsibility and what it is they offer in the relationship. And when I talk to my kids in a way that I feel like I would talk to a friend, like that's my age, right? They listen so much better. They love it, right? And it puts a little responsibility on them, and that's okay. That's good. Um, so yeah, that's like another thing that I think is good. If you can just help them out with those things.
That's way cool. I love that. Awesome. I that makes me like I'm gonna come back and watch this all the time
I
because
love you.
I haven't had kids yet. Like
You're
I
so
want to be
awesome.
like you in that aspect. Like I love everything that you said, and kids are not resilient. They're resourceful and like they're just coping day to day. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. I love that. Okay, amazing. Next question. Tell me about a time when you truly felt seen.
This one's easy for me. So I had my twins first, and about the second they put my second baby on me, chest to chest, the way that Rusty looked at me was like there was no other better moment ever. Like it was really cool. And being able to just like carry life and have children. And it's funny because we live in a world where people are like, why would I ever have kids? This is a terrible place, right? And why would I have multiple kids, right? And I'm just like, the world needs better humans in it. I'm gonna have all the kids, right? Like I've got 5 kids. I want one more. It's like, no, the world actually needs better people. The world is being led by the children today. And so um I don't know. I think if you can, not to get off topic, but like I think if you can just remember like whether or not you have children as a woman, to be seen and heard and felt the way that you want to be portrayed, that's super invaluable and that's important. Um, yeah, that's probably your most like I was seen as a woman answer because it's not anything like work related, but that was probably one of those moments for me that I'll never forget was like the shift in the way that my spouse and the person I love so much looked at me in becoming a mom.
Cool.
And so that's my moment, I guess.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's like a perfect moment too. Like, I mean, like perfect moment to feel seen as a woman too. Like that's that you're in your element. Like that was your strongest power. You just like delivered two
Oh, it was awful.
humans. So like I love that. That's a great one. I love that answer. So
And I
amazing.
think too, it was funny because I remember thinking when you asked this question about it, and I was like, I don't know. And then that moment came up, and I was at my worst, Kennedy. Like, I labored for 10 hours. I threw up the entire time I delivered. I was like down to just stomach bile and like
Mm.
dry heaves of nothing, right? Like, I was at such a physical low point.
Yeah.
And to it's such a spectrum of emotion when you have a baby, but to go through the labor, to go through the deliveries and be sweaty and covered in tears and puffy eyed and vomiting and like have two perfect babies placed on your chest and your husband to look at you that way,
That's the
there
one.
was literally nothing better.
Like the most vulnerable you could be.
So vulnerable.
And then to still like be loved after that. Like that's cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So excited for that.
Yeah, you can do hard things.
Yeah, there you go. That's what it's about.
Oh, I love it.
So amazing. Okay. Last question. How do you express your power as a woman?
Um, for me, I think kind of, and I'm not saying this because it's something that I necessarily recognize in myself or feel all the time, but this is something that um since, the last like 13 months with my business growing and as that's expanded, I've had the opportunity to network a lot with a lot of different people. And some of them are my close friends. And it's funny because this has actually come up probably 4 or 5 times in the last year by other people. And so this is how I like came up with some of this answers. So this is, I guess, what people observe of me. Um, my friend Christina, she's like, "You're so sensual." I'm like, "Am I now?" And I have had so many friends tell me that. And so I think kind of preserving like that womanness, that femininity, um, just like being in touch with your side of being a woman, right? Um, is really important, especially in a world like today. Um, there are things like with feminism that I love, right? There are so many things with feminism that I do not prefer whatsoever. I'm like, call me a feminist in the 1950s and 40s when it was just like the best, right? Like now it's like it's such a sadly misconstrued term through the media, through the way that women do carry themselves in specific groups. And I have like no association or relativity to that. But as a woman, um, I feel like my ability to communicate as clearly as I can, to articulate my thoughts and my emotions in a way that is never emotional, in the sense of like hurting someone else or being in a space of like, I don't care, this is how I feel, and being very self aware to know like my audience and to know um, the way that I want to communicate clearly. I think that's part of my superpower. And then I'm a nurturer. Um, a lot of my friends are like, "Oh, Natalie's like the mom to everybody," like because I guess inside of me, I just have this like nurturing desire to help people grow, to help people see things for themselves, to communicate clearly, to whatever that is. Um, I protect and remain unwavered in my loyalty to others. I am extremely loyal to those around me who I love, trust, and believe in. Um, and that like will never change. Like, so although I am a very kind person and articulate, like I also have an ability to very clearly and sometimes very candidly communicate, um, with others and as my relationships develop and the things that are necessary to continue. And I think that's okay. I think that comes with kind of what we talked about earlier with boundaries. It's really important to set clear boundaries for yourself and know that you have to like live in those. Um, there's a lot of power that resides within self-expression, tons, right? Like if you can be expressive of yourself in a way that um, nobody outwardly from you questions where you stand or where they stand with you, that is awesome. It's a really good feeling. I tell my employees, I tell my business partner, I tell whoever, if you ever question where you stand with me, I have not done my job in communicating effectively with you. And so that falls back on you as the one that's, you know, ever if you're ever misinterpreted, like that's your fault. That is. And you have to take responsibility for that. And you have to have self awareness to be able to see that and have an ability to change and improve that. Um, I feel like as women, we do have a very unique ability to love unconditionally and to sense the needs of others that need fulfilled. That is a woman in general, I feel, superpower. That is like a woman's superpower, right? To be able to constantly love through pain, even sometimes, and to be able to know and see people for who they actually are. And even sometimes as they change and grow and develop and even waver in their life, to still be able to love them through their changes and their growth. I think that is a woman's superpower because men don't have that the same. Like men have an ability to just quickly, either disregard or forget. I do believe there are so many men that are very forgiving, loving, and can love. Um, but men also, because of our society and the way that they are brought up, they struggle with self-expression. They struggle with sitting in their emotions. They are raised to just be tough and callous and gritty and get through it and forget the hell, like, to hell with how you feel. You just got to get through it. You just got to be tough. And I think that is lost on us in society, and it's our job as women to support our men, to nurture our men, to help them feel and see their emotions in a way that they maybe haven't before. And the world will be a better place because of it. So I think that women are very selfless, they're very understanding. Um, and I think those are just things to keep in mind as a woman and tap into those superpowers, because when you can like clearly use those and have them in your tool belt, you really can do anything, and the opportunity is limitless. So
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I mean, I second to everyone that gave you like said that those things about who you are, because like you I have felt the love from you,
oh, you're so
wanting
cute,
to
I love you.
wanting me to be a learner, like wanting me to grow, and like you are that way through and through, like a learner of life, like exactly, they like hit the nail on that. um and I think I love what you said about men like living with their own insecurities and like that whole disregard of emotion, like growing up. That's so true. Like and it makes me so sad as well. And
Yeah.
I want to like note too, like we can lead by example as well. Like I think that we are those nurturers. We could be the ones to really like help change that for men. I mean, there's obviously like balance in that. It's like I'm not gonna
Yes, of course.
yeah, I'm not gonna like be your responsibility.
Of course,
It's like
right? Like
totally
you
up
got to set your boundary with
yep,
helping those,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
tell my husband all the time, I'm like that's something we work on all the time. It's something I still work on, right? But especially with him, I'm like, how are you doing? He's like, oh my gosh, I'm fine. I'm like, no, but really, how are you really doing? And it's good to check in. It's so good. And if they don't want to share, that's on them. Like you don't have to pry that out of somebody because that's their own. In Spanish, we say la intimidad, which is like someone's self intimacy, not in a sexual sense, but just like that sense of like, this is my um emotional sanctuary and I don't get to share this, or nor do I want to share this with everybody. And so it's really important to keep that in mind when trying to help and nurture men through the ways of their feelings, because it's important that they feel like they reside in a space of safety, um, if and when they decide to share, right? But I think just implementing the question, just asking the question, helps the wheels start to turn, helps them, and you don't ever get to know, maybe like maybe you'll never get to know
yeah,
exactly how they feel, but you don't know also how they are processing that and how they're actually thinking and maybe even beginning to implement those changes. And so I think just asking those questions is important. um you know Self-expression of yourself is really important because you're also living what you're preaching, right? You're leading by example. And and just letting them know, like, always and forever, that, and I'm speaking more on like a partner's sense, like my spouse, right? But that it's important to feel and to understand where those emotions are coming from. I always say, pick, like, give your emotions a name and a space,
Yeah.
right? The best way to process through your emotions, at least for me, is recognize where they're coming from. If I'm feeling, a sensation of anger or frustration, it's my responsibility to not act out on that and be crazy. It's my responsibility to recognize that emotion for what it is and name it and say, man, I'm feeling anger today.
Yeah.
And then kind of rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Like, how angry are you? And then work backwards, right? Like, if anger is where you're at, it's kind of like when you set goals, right? You want this big, lofty goal, but what are all the steps leading up to that goal that are going to get you there? So, kind of working backwards in that with your emotions is important. You pick your emotion, whatever that may be, and then work backwards to strategize with yourself on how to de-escalate your emotion, your situation, and figure out how to work around that. Um, so much so, especially in the world today, people fly off the freaking handle, and it is inappropriate and it is not okay. And people do not check themselves. They just want to sit there and have self expression like written all over their body with whatever they want to say. And it's not okay. It's totally not okay. Um, to do it in such a way that is destructive for yourself first and foremost, because I feel like there's truly a destroying their ability to really work through things constructively, and then also outwardly to others. Like, that's not okay. But if you can give your emotions a name and a space, and then work out of that space, if it's a negative emotion, and kind of do the things that make you happy to kind of switch up that feeling. And sometimes that takes days. It depends on the situation, right? It doesn't have to be just like in a moment. But I think doing that's important. We say this to our kids. I say this to my husband, like, give your emotions a name and a space. And you would be shocked at the success that comes from doing that for yourself.
Yeah. Well, it allows you to deeply feel like those emotions and like
Yeah.
positively like flow through them. Like it's funny you say that because my screensaver is literally how to like do what you just said. Like there's this acronym, it's RAIN. It's like recognize, allow, investigate, and then nurture. Like
Love it.
because I know that I'm going through emotions all the time. So it's like, okay, I have that to follow like the RAIN thing. So
I
amazing.
love it.
You're awesome. Well, I know we went over a little bit of time, so I'll end things here, but seriously, Nat, you're awesome. Like,
You're awesome. I love you. I'm just like honored that you would even ask me any of these things.
you were like the
You're
first
so
on my
great.
list. Like, I was
You're
like,
so
I
great.
need
I
to.
just love you and I'm so proud of you. I'm
Thank you. Thank you.
excited for this project to just like hit the ground running. So
I'm excited too. Well, thank you so much.
you're
And I
awesome.
will see you here in a little bit as well. I'll be at
Yeah,
the
I'll see you soon. Okay, bye.
peace. Thank you so much for tuning in today's episode. If you loved what you heard today, be sure to share with me by leaving a review on iTunes so that I can keep the beautiful stuff coming your way. If you aren't already following me on social media, come soak up the extra inspiration and knowledge on my Instagram by following at Kennedy_Garfield. I love you so, so much and can't wait to connect with you on the next episode. In the meantime, go out there and grow up.